Good morning, everyone. How we doing? Got some people in chat already, and we're gonna kick off. My name is Liam Conway. I'm also known. Yo, how you doing? Don't eat raw haggis. How do you catch raw haggis? Honestly, pretty curious because I've never found raw haggis like in the wild. It may be Tasmania, but yeah, very curious. Good morning and welcome, everyone. We're going to be cracking on with some more discussions about style, about game development, about how to build and play around with different things where they came from beneath the sea. A couple of things with Onyx Path. Recently, the Cats of Mao kicks backer kit has gone live. So if you want to play a small kitten that is out there trying to be a heroic individual, jump on that, take a look. You can find it with exclamation mark Mao BK in chat. Other stuff, we've got the Onyx Path game weekend coming up this weekend. So if you have any Onyx Path games, throw a tweet out, put it up on Instagram. Let us see what you're doing with Onyx Path games, particularly the Storypath games. That would be fantastic. Alright. Now I'll minimise that. We're going to be talking about They Came From Beneath the Sea, discussing some of the stuff that you can do with it. Fundamentally, They Came From Beneath the Sea is a schlock or B-grade or corny horror game with 1950s and 60s horror aesthetic. So it's got that sort of vibe going on. In this case, I've put it into, as I want to do, the Australian context, and we have the Bushduff Blitz. Now, one of the things with kind of design that I kind of want to talk about here is a very simple fact that if you are a storyteller, if you are a DM, if you're running games, if you're just looking after games, you are inherently a game designer. Part of what I have brought the Bushduff into it, the way you design is important, and what the Storypath Game Jam is about is increasing some of those skills in design in whatever way you can. For Scion, I am still throwing together, but it's getting there, a pantheon of the forgotten ones, those deities who have been forgotten either through genocide, through just the slow progression of time, or whatever. For They Came From Beneath the Sea, I'm going to own it. I am drawing from someone else's work very strongly for this. But that is because I've not played They Came From, and although I love the idea of running a schlocky, horror sort of situation that's mostly, a white woman screaming on the street, "Oh no, don't take my baby!" That isn't something I've had the opportunity to do. So, we have Bushduff Blitz as part of this design. Now, a Bushduff is, if you don't know, like a music festival, particularly an electronic or a more modern music festival that takes place away from civilization. Bushduffs don't happen in the town. They happen out where it's a bit more difficult for certain legalistic members of society to ensure that there is no additional enhancing of the experiences that you're having there. So this is, it's a doof in the bush. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate your work, Rujingu. And if I butchered that, I'm sorry. The Blitz comes from Sweet's like 1960s, 1970s glam rock hit Ballroom Blitz. It is a port over into this sort of situation where you're not in a ballroom, you're out in the bush, and there are different things going on. So, this is where talking about session design is also helpful if you've ever had the opportunity to design a session or like prepare a session, whatever you want to put it as. It sucks if you are struggling with that sort of design. In D&D, they will use an encounter design. You're supposed to have approximately, in an adventuring day, 8 encounters. These can range from something falls onto the road and gets in your way, or goblins attack, or whatever it is. Like, it's variable. But the party should have approximately 8 encounters in total. In terms of storytelling games, that doesn't work. You can do some porting over, but it doesn't work because the goal of a storytelling game is to enhance and tell the story of everyone involved. So you can't rely on that encounter structure. It is better to rely on a storytelling structure in some design, whether that be using acts, which this uses, or whether it be setting up particular scenes that are maybe tied to tarot cards that as you draw from you can play out through the game. Whether it be randomly generated tables that you kind of weave together as part of your story, which is something I personally enjoy doing a lot because it's a lot of fun. In this case, you're not getting that. You're getting a very simple 3-act structure that plays into the schlock nature of the bush stuff. I've done this outline with a series of scenes, but what we'll actually be building in is more of the scene text, discussing how you can work with that. And my intention was to show how you can kind of copy-paste it over into They Came From Beneath the Sea, but I couldn't get the layout template to work, so I am sorry about that. But yeah. So, in story structure, we all know it. We probably did it in like Year 8 English. You have a general curve up that plateaus and then drops off in terms of tension and in terms of what you're doing in the story. Scene 1 should be simple. It should set the scene for the entire film. Or the entire game. The following scenes build on it in some way. One of the ways you can do that is by increasing tension, increasing complexity. In the case of They Came From and other Storypath games, you could use complications or the need to spend group resources like momentum to keep things going. In this case, because I am writing this out for someone else to use, I have to be particularly clear. If I was writing this for myself, I would just run with this one page, and maybe I'd have some little, throw in these ideas. Throw in a few stat blocks for me to quickly reference rather than making up the dice on the fly. So, scene 1. So, with They Came From, you should select a genre to make it clear what you're going for. I'll actually fire up the core book. They came from beneath. Core, and where is it? It's this one. Because as your, here we go. Not that one. As you're working through the nature of your horror film, you may want to do a very, very schlocky, very, very silly style of horror. You may not want to do that. You may want to look at a more solid style of horror. Something that is based maybe in the more personal horror that you may find in Vampire the Masquerade, for example. This one. So, I am borrowing heavy inspiration from this document, Party Beach Creature Feature. You can see the 3-act structure here. It's very simple in that regard. However, where is it? Right at the top. Trademarks, attributes. Stunts. Am I just useless? Pre-production. I am just useless. Pre-production. This discusses various genres, whether you're going for something low budget and therefore probably making some sort of commentary. Big budget, where you're going for something that's going to appeal for a lot of people. Arts, that you're playing with more flowery and introspective ideas. Or exploration, which is about creating shock and horror and all that sort of stuff. This is designed to be able to be kind of templated across any of those. But it's also designed to be specifically set in the Australian kind of context. So, in terms of the first scene, introduce the location. Let's grab this box. Text box. Simple box text. And so we go tight. We always want it nice and tight. Just to keep things moving smoothly. Alright, so the location, we want it to be 2 hours outside of Sydney, Australia, deep in the heart of the Blue Mountains. All around are twisted and turned eucalyptus trees, gum nuts littering the floor of the bush. As the group approaches the site of the doof, to begin to arrive, the stage is set up. Dozen bands playing over the weekend. And in the air, the sound of mozzies, cicadas, and crows ring out over the small clearing. Okay, if you're looking at something in terms of game design, and you're looking at setting a scene, you really need to make sure that your scene is going to evoke the genre that you're looking for. In this case, if we were going for a big budget genre, you'd add a bit more to the box text. You'd say, instead of a small clearing, this huge clearing where people are flocking to, who have come from Melbourne, from Brisbane, from Cairns. There's even a small convoy that is said to be coming from Perth, WA, having crossed the Nullarbor. And that's all bringing this very silly, very light-hearted sense that this is just going to be a weekend where people are having fun. You may want to include in this the scent of illicit substances, different incenses. You may want to include the scent of people's sweat and their laughter as the bush doof is getting set up. If you're looking for something a bit more artsy, a bit more in that sort of style, you may not want to add all of that detail. You may want to emphasize the nature of the bush, how it reaches up around and shelters the people coming from the sounds of the city and that sort of thing. You're looking to add that level of kind of introspection, but also a sense of this is people coming home, this is people engaging with the storytelling that's going on. This should cover recent events. That doesn't sound right. Various strange dreams of the attendants. Insert text box. So, this is setting the scene. This text box should be setting the genre, setting the nature of the story. If you're ever running a story, they'll generally flow these two into each other because, say you pick up one of the D&D books or a jumpstart from Onyx Path, which you absolutely should, you will see that they flow in not just the setting information, but also the kind of the design information of the scene. So, everyone is chattering, but they all look tired and lethargic. People are swapping sandwich bags of powder as they talk about bad dreams, of the trees coming to life and taking people away. Now this is, once again, B grade. It's schlock horror. You're not looking to make that particularly dreadful. If you're running this, you want to make it easy. Excuse you, what the dickens do you think you're doing? Unwanted behaviour. Truly fatherless behaviour from Word. Um, putting that into the context of the story that you're telling is important. You want people to be latching onto these ideas as you're designing. You want people to know, okay, there's going to be drugs here, there's going to be this weird dreaming thing. You're going to have the idea of people being kidnapped. And this is where I would say have the players introduce their characters and give them a small couple of minutes interaction. Now, this is where the players come in, because I'm not going to design players for this. I don't want to. It's not my problem. But for this, maybe the players want to introduce their characters and give them a bit of time to talk between each other, or they want to introduce them and then, talk to maybe one of the people handing out the drugs, one of the people handing out or talking about stories. Maybe they have a friend who's in the band they want to go and converse with. All of that sort of stuff is part of the design that this as a document cannot account for, because just like no plan survives first contact with the enemy, no plan survives first contact with players. It's just how it works. And it's an important design lesson to learn, I think. Players ruin everything, but they do it in the best possible way. The players ruining your plans are how your story gets better. And that's what you have to have space for. Alright. Scene 1, very simple. Interrupt the scene. You can declare homophobia. That's fair. But having played with you, you and I both know I'm not wrong. Interrupt the scene with the first act taking to the stage. Now, as people are getting kind of into their interactions, starting to feel out their characters, feel out the other people at the table, and just get to know what's going on. Interrupting that because this is a written module, you need to interrupt that to progress the story. This is a note to players. If you are playing something that is based in a jumpstart or an adventure book, try to let the story be pushed by the DM and not overly interrupt it. You should still interrupt it. You're playing. It may be your fun. Not doing it may be called out as inappropriate by some of your players a few years later as they attempt to bully you online. Who knows? But cement that the story is the thing that you guys are all engaging in. And so the storyteller needs to push that a little bit more. In this case, you interrupt the scenes with the first act taking to the stage, and you know what? Ryu? Or, no, you know what? That's rude. People don't need to know about my mistakes. Mistakes you weren't even there for, as I uttered the phrase, "Is this enough dice for a god?" and then proceeded to fail that roll. Suggested band names. Stinky eggs and ham. Goanna on a shed roof. And Boblin the Goblin. I'll tell this story because it's funny. First game I ever ran was Changeling the Lost, Little Bird, and in the course of that, one of the players had met their fetch, they'd gotten to know them, and to save one of the other players' in-game sisters, story time, it's great. They basically trapped my plot in riddles in the dark. They had collected a few reagents, they took their fetch out, and they sacrificed their fetch to stop this eldritch abomination that was coming in. Lovely and grimdark, just the sort of thing for Changeling. So he binds the player binds this eldritch entity in multiple contracts, multiple oaths to make sure that they behave. And they just ask, what is in my pocket? And me, in my glorious hubris, pick up 20 dice, 25 dice, and look to one of the other players who had been my ST, and I ask, is this enough dice for a god? It was not. It was not. And so I rolled, I failed, and so the Eldritch being asked, what is a pocket? Which, yeah. Changeling the Lost is supposed to be a horror game, but that doesn't mean you can't be a little silly with it. Because of the oaths that thing was under, it was subsequently bound into the form of a fluffy white cat with a pink button nose, which any supernatural person who saw it was aware of what it formerly was. And the player, I think, got to have, they bound it so well. And they played very well. And so they had to retire that character because after 2 or 3 sessions of every supernatural going, huh? They basically went, I'm too powerful now. This isn't fun. On a tin roof is what that should be. So yes, that is why there is never enough dice for a god. Cool. The first act jumps on and you have a bunch of potential band names there, or you can make up your own. It could be fun. You could give the band name of Enough Dice for a God, just for fun. The second scene of this first act is the one where you've set the location, you've set the vibe, everybody's kind of getting into it. And at the back of the kind of arena, maybe even the back of the stage if you wanted to do it, maybe the drummer is in on this, whatever you want, a man's eyes begin to glow red. The man in the back is ready to attack. His eyes are as red as the sun from Ballroom Blitz. And the woman in the corner lets no one ignore her because she thinks she's the passionate one. So she sings out over the crowd in a language that people don't understand. And as she does so, out of the bush comes a horde of she-oak critters. Now, I'll get an image up of she-oak. Yeah. That's somehow smaller. So that is she oak. It is a cluster plant that lives generally on the east coast of Australia. Let's see if we can get a couple of better images of what it actually looks like. So these sorts of little fellas, I'm imagining river she oak. So this sort of design starts like little spidery things or big critters come out of the bush and start attacking people. In this case, I'm thinking particularly as inspiration the Banksia men. Don't eat their... Why do you know that their leaves will make you vomit? Is this just survival instinct or something you've tried? If you've ever had the opportunity to read May Gibbs' The Snugglepot and Cuddle Pie of the Gumnut Babies, Anya. The Banksia men are the kind of big bads of that. They are tricksters. Their art is not culturally sensitive anymore, and they have some serious issues in their design. But they are very... They're an interesting sort of monster. So, on stage and starts playing their first song. A man in the back who had been... hello little ladybug. The man in the back who had been giving out some drugs to other festival goers. Stands up, his eyes glowing bright red, and he points to the bush. As he does so, a woman in the corner of the crowd stands up and in a piercing shriek sings out over everyone's... I cannot spell... heads. Okay. Interrupting your story with points for the players to interact are really important here. So here, if you didn't have the chance, ask if anyone purchased anything from him. Any players? Chance in scene 1. Ask if any of the players purchased anything from him. Sweet! Ask the players if they know the woman question. This is designed to be run as a one-shot, maybe a two-shot sort of game. So giving players the opportunity to invest in this in their own way. Maybe one of the players knows the woman. They know her name is Bethany or something. She went to their high school. She's a bit of a pain, but they get along with her. That's really cool. That's very helpful. That gives people more information about the world. Sorry, I just have to organise my setup and get another book out. Beneath the Sea. Because what we're going to do is I'm going to... Wow, thank you. Do we have an index? We're going to look up at some of the poison rules. And this is where we'll start to get into our actual design a bit more solidly. Physical. Oh, interesting. Poisons are not mentioned. Let's look at toxins. Tropes. We'll bounce over to this. You're all lucky. Deactivate. Activate. There we go. Save. Okay, so were-lobsters is something within the canon of this. So just be so we're aware, this is supposed to be Camelot. It is a very silly place. We don't have any toxin rules. Alright, because we don't have any toxin rules, I want to match this to disease rules. What on earth? Okay. We're going to jump back to the top and do our friendly Control F. Because what I want to do is, if people have had any of these poisons, any of these drugs that have filtered through their system, I want to marry that to a pre-existing rule set. Acquired poison immunity. Okay, let's take a look at stamina. Stamina is climbing, running, doing things for any period of time. Okay, let's take a look at this. So Sarah became immune to snake venom because she wanted to, I guess. She's immune to their poisons too. Okay, so let's take a. Here we go. Just for the vibes, yeah. Right. Here we go. Indirect damage doesn't have to make an attack roll. Instead, it just does damage inherent to its damage rating. Characters can shrug it off or take it as normal, and there may be additional damage tags. Okay, cool. Let's see if there's any more information on poisons. Zombie Stalin. Fantastic. That is not something I expected to ping in on. Here we go. So up here, now that we've asked our players, we want to give them the reason that we asked with special rules. So we want to give here we go. Wake up dust. It's going to be its name just because that's corny and I like the sound of it. The man in the back is a drug dealer par excellence. Sure. Excellence. There we go. Selling to anyone within the bush doof. The wake up dust. Is a slow acting poison that stays in the system for a scene. If a victim fails the stamina roll, now it gives us conditions, so I'm going to reference those on page 96. If a user fails the stamina roll, they gain the blinded condition for a scene. And a minus because we're using they came from, I need to shift my design a little bit. That's style guide. Because I want to double check. Yeah, we're going to give them the stun condition actually, because the stun gives -2 to all rolls. But I also want to increase the complications or enhancements. Level 3 complication to all intelligence rolls, causing. Now, these are circumstances that hinder people due to the unchecked aggression of the user. A user must make a stamina roll every 10 in every few minutes. Or actually, even better, this is a cinematic game. Must make a stamina roll every time the hey plastic cage, how you doing? Every time the focus of the scene returns to them. They Came From is supposed to be cinematic, so we want to give this impression that, oh, they've taken the drug, and now they're they are now the focus of a scene. If the camera moves away from them, it means that they are not important in this. They've succeeded their stamina roll, and so they can keep going. But every time the camera returns to them, every time we re-see them and they are refocused in the scene, this stamina roll must be remade. This basically makes up for the every turn. You don't want to be doing it every turn. You don't want to put that pressure on players, but you do want to put pressure on them doing things. Okay. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Plastic. If the due to the unchecked aggression of the user and their general frustration. Now, the woman in the back lets out this piercing shriek over the crowd. Ask the players if they know the woman. Give her a special rule of Song of Her People. The woman in the corner is known for her deep and easily applied passion. And we'll put that in quotations just to be silly. She has a lovely singing voice, and as she raises it to call something from the bush, the crowd swells in appreciation. Now, we really want this to be kind of an auditory adventure. I want this to be an adventure where sound is important to the players. So if I was playing this sort of game, or running this game, I would want to emphasize things like you hear from the bush, the things that you hear, kind of the sensation of being heard by someone that you don't want to be heard by, and that sort of thing. So, Song of Her People, when she sings out over the crowd, everyone must make a, this is going to be a static difficulty, a difficulty 4, not that one. Where is it? Character sheet. Difficulty 4, composure plus stamina. Plus stamina. Roll. So, party needs to get 4 successes on composure plus stamina. There is always a static threshold of 8, I believe, in Storypath on your D10s. So you need to get 4 successes here. The reason for that is it should be within the realm of possibility that the effect of this is repellable, but you want it to be clear that this is something dangerous that is happening, something big is coming, and that those who fail, if a listener fails this roll, They must part ways for the She-Oak monsters to come towards people. So this She-Oak idea, this what are they called? The Banksia men coming out of the bush are coming forward because she has summoned them, because she has called them close. And as they kind of step forward, she's the passionate one that steps out of the way and gets to business. And that's where we'll pause with the main line of design. What I am wanting of this is that people would engage with how sound in particular. Why video capture device deactivate and activate? What I want to be playing around with in this is how sound can play into people's perception of horror. So rather than, say, just a loud screeching effect, maybe a deep rumble, maybe the kind of Sardaukar throat singing or Mongolian throat singing that you can find in The Who or in Dune. That sort of thing is kind of what I want to come to the fore. In terms of monster design, they will be simple, because they rock up, they infect the lineup, they don't need a stat block just yet. But what they will do, as the new band starts to play, their name changes to Grifter's Bone. Now, Grifter's Bone is taken from is a name taken from Rusty Quill's The Magnus Archives. I'll probably change it in some form to still reference them, because this is the idea that I want to go for, but not something that could so quickly violate copyright as to get this permanently disqualified or ripped off Storypath Nexus. We don't want that. Instead, we just want this homage to this idea of a band who plays and invests in people this sense of violence. Now, this is where these two elements come in. With the Wake Up Dust, that is designed to be more easily trigger people to rampant violence and to blackouts. This woman's song is supposed to make people more pliable to the effects of the She-Oak monsters. And this is where we come to this portion. The party wakes up. So this is probably all taking place, hopefully within the first half hour of your game. First half hour to hour. All of the party gets to introduce themselves. They get to kind of get a feel for what's going on. This big event happens that starts ramping up the tension, and then they come to, and the rest of the game has their agency as kind of central focus. There are particular points that the storyteller should direct them towards, like, in this case, the ones I give are a She-Oak glade, or the woman and the man in question, who have been, dun dun dun, murdered. And so you're putting together different bits and pieces as the game goes on, so that people can continue to play, continue to invest, and continue to run their characters as if they are, with the intention that they will solve this problem. Which should be, attempting to deal with the problems of the bush doof, either getting to a campsite to keep people safe, or crushing the she-oak pods, or whatever. That should be the pinnacle of your game. And then it drops off and you go about your mortal lives. And that's what I have for Bush Doof Blitz. I hope that that's helpful if you're looking at doing some design, and particularly like jumpstart design or story design in general, to have an idea of how to continue to build tension and continue to kind of weave in people's characters and their mechanics into how you're doing things. That would be my goal. Otherwise, yeah, that's what we have thus far. I'm going to continue working on this and hopefully look at uploading it to the Storypath Nexus Game Jam, which will be ending soon. So if you have any ideas, any thoughts, any documents related to this that you've put together over February, please throw them up. We have, I think, 4 entries that we know of that are tied to new beginnings. I need to alter this to include that theme of new beginnings, of how people are investing in this new world. However, that's everything I have so far. Thank you very much, chat, for watching, for filtering in, and don't forget we have the Cats of Mao up on BackerKit, so if you want to play cute kittens, please jump in on that. If you have any games or anything that you're keen to run with Onyx, hit them up. Curious Cats of Mao, take a look over on BackerKit. The Onyx Path game weekend is this weekend, so if you have anything, please tweet. Please use the Instagrams. I can remember when MySpace was a thing, so I'm sorry, my brain is a little bit fried. And yeah, that's all the time we have. And I will try to organise a raid into someone else's stream if you want to kick along. Alright. Thanks very much, and I'll see you around.